Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and feeling great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great weekend out there so far. Here to bring you the latest information that we have on Tropical Storm Debby. Debby is now a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm per the latest 8 a.m. update. So the first thing we'll discuss is what's going on with this tropical storm right at this moment in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. We'll give you the latest information on that advisory from the National Hurricane Center. We'll really zoom into the column for you guys, get you guys a really good idea where this thing is heading, especially in the shorter term. After we get past the Florida impact, the Florida landfall, things get a little bit more fuzzy, but we'll speak on all that also. We'll go over all the latest model guides, the GFS, the European, the Canadian, the Icon model, all the model ensemble guidance, the hurricane models. We'll get very, very detailed on the potential impacts of this system. I think the rainfall could be catastrophic, historic with this system, especially as we get into the coastal regions of Georgia and the low country of South Carolina. We'll get very detailed on that. We'll talk about that, wind impact, storm surge. We'll speak on the tornado threat with this. Yeah, and then we'll talk about the environment that this system is working with right now that's promoting this to at least moderately intensify, which I think is happening with Tropical Storm Debby right at this moment. Could it undergo rapid intensification sometime this evening into the overnight hours? I think it's very possible. We'll speak on that. We'll talk about steering currents, and then we'll talk a little bit about a couple waves that I'm watching out the Atlantic. I don't think things are just going to shut down after Debby like it did with Beryl. I think we're going to continue to be active over the next few weeks throughout August, maybe clear all the way through September 1st. So we'll speak on that, and then we'll round the video off by giving you some updated information on what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your Sunday. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. And just a quick reminder, take advantage of those timestamps that are put up throughout the entire video for you folks just to jump ahead to certain portions of the video that you want to pay attention to. These videos are very long. They're very detailed. Spent a lot of time on them. And I don't blame you if you don't have 30 to 45 minutes to watch a video on the weather. It's just the only way I know how to do it. I feel like it's the best way to do it. It gets the most information out there to you guys, and I love explaining things because I'm passionate about it in a way where you folks as the audience can understand. So with all that chattering aside now, let's get rocking and rolling. So this is Tropical Storm Debby right now. Of course, this is Florida. All right, this is kind of the southeastern or eastern Gulf of Mexico, Cuba down here. So the center of this circulation, and I'm going to try drawing this, but you're not going to be able to see it very well. Center of circulation is kind of like right into here, right? Okay, so if you notice, there's not a lot of action going on the west side of the system. Most of it is on the east side of the system. Why is that? Well, this system's probably dealing with a little bit of westerly shear. This is preventing a lot of shower and storm development from really fully wrapping around the center of circulation. So most of the shower and storms basically are firing on the east side of this system. And if you notice here in the blacks and whites, this indicates colder cloud tops, which tells us we have stronger and taller updrafts soaring up higher up in the atmosphere where it is colder. So this is a WAP-sided tropical storm. It's basically easternly heavy. And what's on the eastern side? What landmass is on the eastern side of this system? Florida. So yes, this is kind of preventing it from rapidly intensifying right now. And until we fully wrap convection around this low-level circulation, it's not going to have any shot to rapidly intensify, which we hope it doesn't. Until that happens, this is just going to strengthen probably a moderate pace, I would say at most. Okay, but on the east side of this system, you guys in Florida are going to continue to get a lot of rising water, storm surge, because it's getting pushed up against the western coastline, outer bands that have the opportunity to produce like gusty winds, tornadoes, flooding. Okay, so this is a close look at what's going on with this system. Right this moment, as around 8 a.m. Eastern time, it's WAP-sided. Okay, a broad look at this system. Okay, I'm showing you this for a reason, because of the environment that this system is dealing with right now. It has a very good environment. I'm talking about sea surface temperatures and the upper wind pattern. The thing that's really preventing this from really popping off is a little bit of shear on the west side of the system, and the fact that this is so broad, so large, it really needs to get more compact, more put together, and just have convection firing around the entire circulation for it to really take off. And we hope that does not happen sometime in the next 24 to 30 to 36 hours. But this thing is working with an excellent upper wind pattern. If you notice, the system is spinning like this, cyclonically. which they do in the northern hemisphere, okay? Low-level circulation somewhere into there, maybe a little bit further east than where I drew the L. But anyways, if you look in the upper levels of the atmosphere, if you notice the screen goes from black to kind of bluish, that is because the sun is coming up on Tropical Storm Debby. Okay, if you notice the cirrus clouds, these higher level clouds are kind of getting dispersed outward, almost in the, well, it's not almost, it is, in the opposite direction of the actual low-level circulation. So it's basically centered under an upper ridge, which a ridge, basically the flow around a ridge goes anticyclonically. So around the actual low-level circulation is cyclonically. So you got air being dispersed outward from the system, basically. So air is being dispersed outward from the low to mid-level circulation. This is allowing for more air to rise. That gets dispersed outward. That allows for more air to rise again. It's just a continuous cycle of rising air, which allows for sustaining and firing of shower and storm activity, which, of course, a tropical system needs to really protect its core and to become healthy and then eventually strengthen. So this is actually underneath what we call an upper level anticyclone, which promotes strengthening of a tropical system. If there's one near it, underneath it is what I'm trying to say. So it's a very nice outflow from this system that you can actually see on satellite very well. It's very, very large, and it's basically centered right in the middle of it. So the ceiling in this, it might be higher than what's forecasted. It just depends on what it's going to do in the short term, literally the next 24 hours. That mixed with the fact that it's over warm waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, temperatures in Fahrenheit are in the upper 80s to even low 90s in certain areas. So what is this thing going to do? We got to figure that one out. So we get all this back off your screen. This is what's going on with the system right now. The latest advisory, and this video is dropping a little bit later than my morning videos normally do. And I'm kind of glad I did, because we did get a bump up 10 miles per hour from the 5 a.m. update, which is what I would have showed you guys if I had made this video about an hour or two earlier, to the 8 a.m. update. So now this is at a 60 mile per hour tropical storm, 1001 millibar low per the latest 8 a.m. update. So if it goes up another 15 miles per hour, we'll have a category 1 hurricane. Okay, so this is now moving northwest, so still taking a little bit west at 13 miles per hour. Now we'll zoom into this cone. All right, and I love looking at this. It's called Zoom Earth. It's like combining Google Maps with the tropics. It's awesome. It's free to you guys to use online on Google. I mean, there's an app for it. It's literally called Zoom Earth. Check it out. It's awesome. I love using it. Okay, right now this is where the center of this storm is, and this needs to actually be upgraded. Let's see if we can get a new update from this. Nope, it has not. So, but anyways, the peak intensity has not changed. It's an 85 mile per hour. That's the peak intensity still. So the 8 a.m. update, the peak intensity has not changed. But this has changed from the video I made yesterday evening, which if you remember, the peak intensity was 75 miles per hour. So forecast to be a 70 mile per hour tropical storm sometime this afternoon. Forecast to become an 85 mile per hour category 1 hurricane by 2 a.m. tonight. And then make landfall most likely as a high-end category 1 hurricane. Forecast to still be a category 1 hurricane just inland after it makes landfall at 2 p.m. Monday, tomorrow. Tropical storm warnings are up in the blue areas. Hurricane watches and tropical storm warnings are up kind of right where tropical storm warnings go into hurricane warnings. I'm going to show you another graphic of this too, of the warnings and advisories and everything like that. But you remember, Idalia came in right here and slammed Perry. Okay, I was right near that area. Definitely just really hit the town hard, did extreme damage. It did a lot of damage too into southern sections of Georgia. And unfortunately for you folks that are tuning in from this area, this system looks to bring some widespread impacts to this area again. Is it going to be as intense as Idalia? I don't think so. But listen, I'm not also going to say that it potentially couldn't be, because this system still has another over 24 hours over water to do something crazy. But hurricane warnings right into here. And then we got tropical storm watches. I mean, this could get pushed a little bit further east. But anyways, let's focus on this cone here. We'll talk about the watches, warnings, and advisories here in a second. So a tropical storm by 2 a.m. Tuesday. From 2 a.m. Tuesday to 2 p.m. Tuesday, I mean, it looks like it barely moves. Okay, still a 45 mile per hour tropical storm. Then it re-intensifies to a 50 mile per hour tropical storm after it gets back off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. We actually have tropical storm watches up now along the coastal sections of Georgia and South Carolina. Basically, I can't speak, but basically preparing for a tropical storm force conditions. Okay, and then it could make a secondary landfall along the South Carolina, maybe the Georgia, maybe the North Carolina coastline. But you see how broad this cone is? I mean, it's still a tropical storm like over Florence, South Carolina. 2 a.m. Friday, that's how long we're going to be talking about this. Even though it's right here to here, it isn't a whole lot of distance, but this thing is going to slow down. We're going to talk about that. Okay, and here's more of the classic look from the National Hurricane Center. Let's make sure we have an update here. Yeah, classic look here. Like I said, 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Hurricane warnings up. This thing is coming, guys. But, you know, another look at the watches, warnings, and advisories. Let's see if we have some new. Yeah, we do. So tropical storm watches have now been issued for Charleston, you know, all the way up to Charleston, you know, Savannah. Tropical storm watches up for most of southeast Georgia. And then, of course, we have the tropical storm warnings up bordering around the hurricane warnings, which is more in this kind of bright red right in here. Tropical storm warnings are up around that. I mean, there's a lot going on. Okay, and I expect tropical storm watches to get pushed a little bit further north too, into maybe some of these far northern counties of Georgia, even into South Carolina, maybe even as far north as like Columbia. Certainly Myrtle Beach, Wilmington will get into this too, have the potential to. So this is the latest advisories and all those things. So we continue to move forward. Let's go over the model, guys. The latest GFS, we'll back this up here. Starting off, it's initializing a little bit weaker, but we continue to move this forward. We get into this afternoon, strengthens. Remember, the further this number drops right here, this indicates a deepening low pressure, a strengthening tropical system. And then we get into the middle of the night tonight, like 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. This is a 988 millibar low, could be stronger, and then it deepens into a 980 millibar low. If this is what happens, guys, if the GFS is right about this, this would be a Category 2 hurricane upon landfall, moving right into the panhandle of Florida. So we're going to try to zoom into some of these geographical areas of the Panhandle of Florida, Big Bend here in a second. I'm going to try to do it on the fly, but makes landfall here in the Panhandle of Florida, continues to move inland, brings a lot of impacts into North Georgia, the Panhandle of Florida, northern Florida, southeast Georgia. Here it comes. I mean, this is getting into midday Tuesday. This thing is strengthening over land. I mean, it's that center of low pressure technically still isn't over water yet. It happens sometimes. We'll dive into that another time. But anyways, this gets back over the open waters. It actually moves southeast back off the coast of Georgia, like in the middle of the night, Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Then Wednesday morning, it's a 995 millibar low again. It's beginning to deepen again. And then it literally is going back out off the coast of the southeast Wednesday morning. And then it hits the brakes and then comes and basically gets it. Debby puts in reverse and goes right back into the Georgia coastline as a strengthening tropical storm, maybe low-end Category 1 hurricane. And then it picks up a little bit more forward speed, goes back into Georgia as a tropical storm Thursday. We get into Friday morning. The remnants of this gets all the way back to Alabama, and it sneaks back off the coastline of the Gulf Coast Saturday evening. Next Saturday evening, re-intensifies, and then makes landfall again in the Panhandle of Florida next Monday. It makes 3 landfalls, guys. I buy the first 2, but I don't know about that third one. That's pretty crazy, right? Okay, so we look at the latest European model. And we might have a new one. Let's see if we do. We do not. The latest European model, we might actually... Yeah, we actually have a new European model. So this is the latest morning run, okay? Intensifies this into a 995 millibar low, makes landfall as a strong tropical storm, low-end hurricane, gets it into the southeast coast, southeastern sections of Georgia sometime late Monday night, gets it back off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina as a 990 millibar low, and then this is as far out as it takes us. Now, if we kind of have to flip it back here to the OOZ run, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit, I would say, this is a little bit weaker. So to me, it looks like that the latest morning run of the Euro actually is a stronger scenario. But we have to look at this because this is all we got right now. But look how it comes here, and this is the European model. All right, Tuesday morning, bringing widespread tropical storm force conditions into the low country of South Carolina, southeast Georgia, spins around, dumps catastrophic rainfall totals. Okay, finally gets off the coastline Tuesday night into the wee hours of the morning Wednesday, and re-intensifies, okay, into a 989 millibar low, but makes a landfall more so into the Grand Strand as a sub 990 millibar low around Myrtle Beach, between Myrtle Beach and like Wilmington, sometime Wednesday night and Thursday morning, and continues just to bring a ton of rainfall, and then it slowly moves up the coastline of the eastern U.S. So the European does not jolt it back into Georgia. It takes it more so into the PD of South Carolina, southeast North Carolina, okay, and then heads on out. All right, what about the latest ICON model? ICON comes up. Low-end Category 1 hurricane tropical storm makes landfall in the Big Bend of Florida. Okay, brings tropical storm force conditions for North Florida, Southeast Georgia. Brings hefty impacts of Southeast Georgia, the low country of South Carolina Tuesday morning. Tons of rain all the way up to the Midlands of South Carolina. You're getting this pool of rain all the way into eastern North Carolina. This thing looks like it's barely wanting to weaken. In fact, just like the GFS, this strengthens this over land, but finally gets this off the coastline Tuesday night of South Carolina, re-intensifies it. Not as crazy as some of these past ICON models that we've been looking at, but re-intensify this into a Category 2 hurricane, makes a secondary landfall as a 980 millibar low hurricane well up the North Carolina coastline between Wilmington and the southern Outer Banks region. So if you live in North Carolina, you are not even close, remotely close out the equation here of potentially getting a landfalling hurricane. Okay. And then this continues just to dump tons of rain into North Carolina and in Virginia later this work week. And then the Canadian has been consistently further west. Okay, this brings it in, makes a landfall as a weaker system Monday morning. Brings a lot of rainfall across Georgia. Finally gets this into the low country of South Carolina. Look at this intense rains here in the low country of South Carolina Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. This is, for example, here in South Carolina, a lot of people are starting their first week of school this week, and I made an announcement saying your first week of school is probably going to get messed with. There's going to be a lot of cancellations of things this coming work week. It'll make the kids happy, but we definitely have to deal with the tropical system. But Wednesday evening, the Canadian now gets this back off the coast of the southeast and then makes another landfall back into the Georgia-South Carolina coastline. So this is kind of the first run of the Canadian model that gets this off the coast of the southeast. So that's something we got to watch. I would say confidence is increasing that is what's going to happen with that. Okay. Now we look at the European ensemble guidance. All right. And this is what this is, right? It is. So confidence is obviously there that we are going to get a landfall into the Big Bend or the Panhandle of Florida. There is a little bit of spread. Some are into the Big Bend. Some are a little bit up the Panhandle coastline. But watch how most of these members get this into Southeast Georgia. And then most of them get this back off the coast of the southeast. And if you notice, it goes from blue to green right here, which tells us that this strengthens. The millibar drops, which tells us that this strengthens off the coast of the southeast as we're getting into Tuesday night and a Wednesday. And watch how they all start to hook back in to the Carolina coastline. Some of the stronger ones into the Carolina coastline. Okay, and then look how they all kind of move inland, dump massive amounts of rain. Okay, so what about the GEFS ensemble? And we can actually look, because I'm making this video, so we're good. So we can actually look at the latest 06Z. Here it comes. The GFS ensemble is certainly more of a Panhandle of Florida landfall as opposed to like the Big Bend of Florida. But regardless, all these take a hard hook to the east and cruise across South Georgia. We got a couple stragglers that get all the way into Alabama. But all these, in fact, some actually dive back south into North Florida. But all these get off, every single member just about gets off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, where, and we're going to have to let this load a little bit, so y'all bear with me, where they kind of dance around down here. And then eventually, and I mean, this is all the way in Thursday evening, guys. Eventually, they either weaken or either make a secondary landfall. I would say the European ensemble is a little bit more put together than the GFS ensemble, which has still got stragglers everywhere. Okay. Now, what about the latest hurricane models? And let's take a look at the H-Wharf model, which is initializing this at 1,000 millibar low this morning. In fact, how strong is this right now again? It's 1,001 millibar low. Okay. So it's initializing this actually a little bit stronger. But anyways, we keep this going. Tampa right here, west coast of Florida. What does the H-Warp model say? Well, it deepens this into a 984 millibar low as early as this afternoon, guys. And doesn't strengthen it much after that, but makes a landfall sometime Monday morning, the wee hours of Monday morning into the Florida coastline. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to pull up Google Maps for you guys and try to mention a couple areas. So, you know, guys, it's about as raw as it gets on my YouTube channel. I like to do stuff on the fly, but this basically brings it into the St. James Island area, okay? And it kind of brings it into like inland, as far as inland areas, Crawfordville. Obviously, Tallahassee would get hit hard by a scenario like this, but definitely right into this area right here, okay? And obviously, the northern to northeast side of this eye wall would be very, very intense. I think that probably the southwestern side of the system right here would be getting affected by a little bit of shear, maybe eating up kind of the portion of the core of the system. But this makes landfall as around a lowish 980-ish millibar hurricane. Brings a lot of impacts, moves inland, and then continues to bring a lot of impacts in the South Georgia, even Southwest Georgia. And what is it going to do after this? Well, the hurricane models just do not like the idea of this getting back off the coast of the Southeast. That's one thing that they disagree with comparing it to the globals. Okay, now if we look at the HFA model, which I think has always been a model that's done pretty well, this is initializing it a little bit too strong though, but deepens this into kind of a sub 990 millibar low, makes landfall as kind of in the same areas, a tick further west, makes a technical landfall there, that same area I just mentioned, as a 986 millibar low, Monday morning, right when the sun's coming up, proceeds to bring a lot of impacts into Georgia, and just does some weird stuff after that. Now, the HFA model just goes everywhere. I mean, it just dances around everywhere after that. Really, I'm just focusing in on the hurricane models as far as the short-term look of this, okay? All right, so that's comparing some model. Now, some hurricane model guys. Now, this is the worrisome thing. Now, this is what concerns me the most, guys. And we're still talking about Florida, no doubt, but we're talking about rainfall, which is widespread, catastrophic totals all the way into Georgia and to South Carolina. Latest information that we have brings, in this red area, that's 12 to 16 inches of rain into the panhandle of Florida, the Big Bend of Florida. But once we start to get into this burgundy color, guys, which includes like Charleston and a little bit down the Georgia coastline, folks, that is 16 to 20 inches of rain. The pink area from Savannah through Hilton Head, Edisto Island, Beaufort, folks, that is 20 to 30 inches of rain between now and the next 5 days. And I mean, even up to Augusta, like 6 to 8 inches of rain. Columbia, 8 to 10, 8 to 12 inches of rain. Up to Wilmington, this could increase if some of these northerly scenarios play out for North Carolina. But Wilmington, 8 to 12. Myrtle Beach, you might as well say around a foot of rain. Folks, catastrophic rainfall totals for this. And between now and the next 5 days, folks, there's a high risk. That is pretty rare. When you get a high risk of flash flooding, that means there's at least a 70% chance of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in a given location. If you don't know anything about Charleston in the low country of South Carolina, Charleston will flood when there's just a high tide sometimes. Charleston will flood because of a summer thunderstorm. Charleston is going to flood because of this also. And I'm not trying to freak anybody out in this area, but I don't even think I have to tell you guys. You guys know this. This could turn into a very bad situation. It's kind of like a Florence situation, but it's coming in from a different direction. But yeah, high risk of flash flooding. When you see that pink show up on the excessive rainfall outlook, you know it's going to be serious. And just to zoom into a couple of these areas, and let's see if we do have any new information. We don't. A couple of these areas, guys, this is between now and next Saturday evening. I mean, right here, this is over 15 inches of rain in this purple area. But, I mean, you take a look inland. I mean, this is like 8 to 12 inches of rain to northern Florida. And then, you know, I'm just going to take a look at all these states. Just take our time here. Look at southeast Georgia, guys. I mean, 10 to as much as 20 inches of rain. Savannah going for over 20 inches of rain. I mean, Atlanta, I mean, look how it cuts off. If you live in southeast Georgia, the rainfall from this, catastrophic potentially. And then you look in South Carolina. Okay, the rainfall from the low country of South Carolina to the Grand Strand, Surfside Beach. Over 20 inches of rain is possible. Some areas are over a foot, 26 inches of rain. From the experts, guys, at the National Weather Service. This isn't some bogus, crazy outlier model run. This is the experts at the National Weather Service, guys. And I mean, even up into Columbia, calling for 9 to 10 inches of rain. That's where I live. If you're not familiar with where I live, where I'm reporting from, I live in Lexington, South Carolina, right outside of Columbia. So this is going to impact my area too. And then we move a little bit further up to look at North Carolina. Virginia, calling for widespread 6 to 10 inches of rain, even in Virginia. I mean, Eastern North Carolina, Wilmington going for over a foot. The rainfall totals from this are ridiculous, guys. They continue to increase. I mean, I thought yesterday was crazy, but we're waking up to even crazier totals. Now we talk a little bit about the winds here. This is the chances to see hurricane force winds, and this is probably increased a little bit. No, it's still the same. Hurricane force wind speed probabilities here. This is everywhere. Okay, so where you see this yellow area, and that means winds approaching 74 miles per hour or higher. Okay, in this yellow area, that's a 30 to 40% chance to see this into the Big Bend and the Panhandle of Florida right here. Of course, it's higher way out in the ocean, but I expect this to increase. The chances to see 50 knot winds, this is 65 miles per hour, 65 mile per hour winds or higher. It's over a 50% chance now. You got like 60, 70, 80% chance to see this into this area of Florida right into here. You can even see it into Tampa Bay with some of these like outer bands up the west coast of Florida into the Big Bend of Florida. All right, and then the chances to see tropical storm force winds. I'm sorry it keeps flipping like that. I mean, this is now extended well into South Georgia, even into the low country of South Carolina. It's between now and the next few days. Even into South Carolina, now you have a 30 to 40% chance to see winds over 40 miles per hour. And of course, pretty much 100% chance to see it into North Florida, the Panhandle of Florida here. All right. And this is the timeline of these winds. I'm not going to try to explain all of this for you, but take a look at this. And yeah, this is the timeline where you can see those 40 mile per hour wind gusts or higher. And just to kind of compare some model guidance, guys, this is, let's see if we have some new information. We really don't. It pretty much has not changed. So it's saying the core of these winds from the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, is going to go right into this area of Florida. So, like I said, this is probably going to, I'm like, dude, where'd you go? This is probably going to go, the National Hurricane Center is saying, hey, this has a chance to go right over Perry again. That's Perry where it says an 86 mile per hour wind gust. So if you live in these areas around Perry, I know there's some smaller towns in this region. I remember driving through this area. This is, from St. Mark's, Crawfordville, over to Perry, down to the beaches right here, Keaton Beach. This is where some of the strongest winds could potentially be. And then, look, I mean, the core of the system is going to go over southeastern sections of Georgia too. So, this is definitely a worrisome situation. The GFS, this brings the core of the winds a little bit further west of those areas that I just showed you. Okay, so brings those 60, 70, 80 mile per hour wind gusts, a little bit further into the Panhandle of Florida. And then if we kind of look at like the European model, and this is the model run from this morning, the one that just ran. It's not as strong with this system, but certainly it's definitely a high impact scenario. And I do want to show you something. I do want to show you guys something on the fly. I want to actually see this from my own curiosity because I want to see what the latest European does. And if you're not familiar with my channel, I do some stuff on the fly sometimes. But the latest European takes this, strengthens this, and it doesn't stop running here. But this is Wednesday evening now. The latest European, the 06Z model, has this as a 985 millibar Category 1 hurricane. And this is getting a little bit further up the Carolina coastline now. So, I think the European probably in the latest run came with a stronger scenario, actually. So we got to watch that. We got to watch all the short-term trends today. Latest on storm surge, guys, 6 to 10 feet from this area right here to this area down here. I know you're like, Mitch, what do you say meaning area? I'm not going to try to pronounce some of these areas. I know some of you folks kind of put it in your earbuds and don't really watch the video, which is fine with me. No offense taken. But basically the entire Big Bend, this entire area is a very flood-prone area, 6 to 10 feet of storm surge. 2 to 4 feet. I mean, this is already kind of occurring for Tampa Bay down here. 3 to 5 feet from Indian Pass points east. So a lot of storm surge, definitely significant storm surge, and they already have storm surge forecasted up 2 to 4 feet from the mouth of the St. Mary's River all the way to South Santee River, kind of up to Charleston, right? 2 to 4 feet. I expect this to increase. And then, folks, there is a risk of tornadoes today. Let's see if there has been a change. There's a slight risk in this yellow, which means there's a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. So if we actually look at what's driving this, is tornadoes. This is your typical tropical tornado risk. So you have a 5% risk because of these outer bands. On the right side of these tropical systems, you have like the low-level jet is maxed out. The wind profile is favorable on the right side, the east side of these tropical systems. So you have a 5% risk of tornadoes with these outer bands that move in this morning, this afternoon, into the overnight hours from Fort Myers up to Jacksonville into a very small section of southern Georgia. So you got to watch out for tornadoes in this brown area. And if you look at the updraft velocity swath, that does indicate some areas highlighted in blue. That tells us that there is a tornado risk today. This tells us where some of these updrafts are rotating and we could have a quick tropical spin up. Typically, these tornadoes are weak, short-lived, but they can do a lot of damage if they just happen to hit your area. And then if we kind of look at the latest HRRR model run from what this is showing here, here it comes. Look at these outer bands across Florida this afternoon. You see these outer bands into here? The right side of the system, there's probably going to be multiple tornado warnings today in the state of Florida, maybe as far north as, like I say, southern Georgia. And then this obviously makes landfall right here sometime in the wee hours of the morning tonight. But you got to watch out. All these banding features right here today, this could be an issue right into here. Tornado threat right into here as these outer bands push on the east side of this of tropical storm hurricane. Almost said Beryl. I've almost done that a couple times. Debby. Talked about Beryl for so long. Now, if we're talking about sea surface temperatures, we're talking about the environment this system is working with right now and out ahead of this system. Guys, like I said, this is over 31 to 32 degrees Celsius water. So basically the sea surface temperatures in Fahrenheit are in the upper 80s to low 90s. So check that off the box. It's working with rocket fuel as far as sea surface temperatures. It is, the waters is like a bathtub. These tropical systems love this warm, moist atmosphere, and they love when they're over these bathtub waters. It helps them to maintain moisture. If they're over cold waters, it chokes them out. They don't like that. So check that off the box. If this system, guys, gets back off the coast, for example, right into here right now, if this gets back off the coast of Georgia, it's dealing with very warm sea surface temperatures in this area too, in the mid to even upper 80s in certain areas. So that's why it'll have an opportunity to re-intensify off the southeast coastline. Okay. Now, the next thing we'll speak on is that upper wind pattern. We've already talked about that a lot in the beginning of the video, but what's wild with me is if you compare what's going on right now with the upper wind pattern based off a model output of the European ensemble, okay, you see these lines being dispersed outward from this system like this. Okay, this tells us that this is working with one heck of an outflow channel right now. Winds are being dispersed outward. It's called divergence aloft. Okay, you're getting just air getting pushed away from this storm in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And if you compare that, because remember the system is spinning like this, you compare that, guys, with the fact that of what this looks like right now. Let's see. You can see it. You can see it really well. You see how the air is getting pushed outward? Just like this. Air is getting pushed out like that, and then it comes down like this, comes over like this, and it comes like that. Center of the low right into here. You can see it on satellite, just how it's being modeled on the European ensemble. So it's pretty wild to actually see it on the model, but actually see it in real-time observation. So it's working with basically a fantastic upper wind pattern. So that's why this could really get its act together. Now, as it approaches kind of the coastline of Florida tonight, it's probably going to start to deal with a little bit of shear. You see how the main, what we call ULAC, is displaced down here now. Let me get that L. That don't make any sense. But you see how the kind of the cinnamon roll spin right here is right here, and then our system's right here. Well, at this point, this gets displaced from that favorable upper wind pattern. Then it gets hit by a little bit of shear on the western side of the system. It's already dealing with that right now, but it gets hit by more. This might prevent it from rapidly intensifying at landfall, because you got to stout flow coming in like this. This is affecting the system. It's displaced a little bit. Still a favorable upper wind pattern, but not near as favorable as what it's got right now. So if you're looking at steering currents, why is this system going to do some crazy loop-de-loops? So if you look on this screen, if you're looking like the orange colors or red colors, salmon colors, pink colors, whatever you want to call it, the warmer colors on your screen, that's high pressure. The bluer colors on your screen, that's lower pressure. Flow around these features do something different than one another. Okay, so right now there is a weakness in the pattern aloft. So you notice there's just white right in here. That is a weakness in the upper steering currents. Flow around this high pressure is going like this. Flow around this high pressure is going like this. Flow around this low pressure up here is going like this. And of course, our system feels the weakness, so it's heading north. That's why it's going north-northwest right now. Okay, there's a weakness, it feels it, so it's a stronger system always wants to gain latitude, go further north. So that's exactly what it's doing because it is in a process of a strengthening storm system. Now we continue to get, let's take it all the way into landfall tomorrow morning. All of a sudden, you have a ridge building on top of the system. The flow around this ridge is doing like this. The system's trying to nose up against this ridge. It's counterproductive though, okay, because the flow is basically competing against the actual forward motion of this tropical system. Okay, at the same time, you got this flow trying to pull up on this system right here with this ridge in the North Atlantic. So basically, there's just a lot of stagnant flow here, and there's competing flows against the actual forward motion of this system. And this tropical system just doesn't know how to act. It just doesn't know how to react to all the flow in the atmosphere, or lack of flow in the atmosphere, I would say. Okay, but you keep this going, and there's still a ridge feature over this system. So there's still a little bit of flow going like this over this ridge. But even though there's flow going around this ridge, guys, this ridge right here, you see how it's kind of that lighter shade of orange or red? It's the doled out color. It's very weak ridging. It's actually not influencing this system as much as you would think it is. It's just the fact that the steering currents that the system is dealing with is just stagnant right over this area. They're very slow. It's not getting pulled one way or the other. In fact, it's just more so kind of drifting this area through in this area right here. And there could be a little bit of flow kind of pulling this to the east side of the system too. But basically the flow right in here is kind of pushing up against the forward motion of this system. So that's why it honestly, instead of kind of moves up into South Carolina, it sort of moves this way and sort of just drifts. If this ridge up here was a little bit stronger, it might actually like kind of pull this a little bit further that way. But it's so weak, and this system's still relatively strong over South Georgia, that it's just sort of drifting off the coast of the southeast. And you kind of keep this going. Now at this point, there's hardly no steering currents at this point. So this thing really slows down. And what I mean here is there is a flow up here, but it's too far north to really be felt by this system. Our ridge gets pulled back this way. There's no ridge over here. So we're left in this area with no pulling mechanism in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So our system is just sort of meandering down here. It's kind of lost in the main flow. There's not really anything pulling it one way or the other. So because that's the case, it's sort of just on this run, the GFS kind of drifts back into the Georgia coastline. And then it's aided to do that by a little bit of flow kind of around this ridge. So this actually probably helps to push it like this also. Okay. Now, if you actually look at the latest Euro from overnight, it's a little bit different, right? Same scenario. System sort of drifts into the coastline. And then there's a weakness right here in the pattern. Weakness right in here. This system's going to try to feel that weakness somewhat and kind of pull north. That's exactly what it does. Look how it begins to pull north. And then it just very slowly just drifts into the Carolina coastline right here. Because, I mean, there's nothing pulling it one way or the other. So it quite literally just slowly, stationarily wise, if you will, just kind of drifts into the Carolina coastline. Because there's no pulling mechanism. There's no big time ridge over here. There's a little bit. There's no big time ridge over here. There's no trough digging down to really like yank this one way or the other. There's nothing to yank this way. There's nothing to yank this back this way. It's sort of just stuck in that stagnant flow right into here. So it just kind of, I'm just going to kind of drift into the Carolina coastline. So that is why there's so much catastrophic like rainfall totals predicted with this, because it just stalls, and especially if it stalls over water, then more shower and storm development will get going, a stronger system, and just a scary scenario potentially. So that's what's going on with steering currents. Now, if we talk about, the strength of this system right now, the hurricane hunters went in it and, shows that the east side of the system is the strongest side. They found 50 to 55 knot flight level winds here. So they obviously bumped up the intensity of this tropical storm because of it. But if you notice on the west side of the system, not a whole lot going on. It's all on the east side of this tropical system. So I do want to mention here very briefly, there's Debby right here. There's some pretty robust tropical activity. We need to watch this system right here. There is model guidance that supports this to get something going here in the Caribbean, and that eventually could be an issue somewhere into here. We're not going to speak heavily on this, but I think it's something to watch, no doubt about it. So that's all I'll mention on this now. I wouldn't be surprised if the National Hurricane Center actually introduces an area of interest for this area if they haven't done already by the time some of you folks watch this, but we'll continue to watch it. Now, as far as what's happening today, you can tell that my weather tap thing has been up for so long that I'm actually having to reload it. So as far as what's going on weather-wise for today, guys, of course, we have our tropical system down here. If this will load up, this thing is really getting its act together now. There's actually a tornado warning talking about those outer bands down here in Florida. There's a lot of moisture getting actually pushed off the coast of the southeast now, as moisture is getting slungshot because of this upper wind patterns pushing this moisture, kind of a moist flow up into the Carolina coastline. We got rain in the northeast. We got some flow up here in the northern Rockies, bringing some beneficial rain for you folks. Up here in the middle of the country, quieter. Now, if we talk about watches, warnings, and advisories, we'll upgrade this. Tropical storm watches have been pushed into South Carolina. Obviously, this is all driven off Debby. Heat advisories, though, for the Gulf coastline. We got dense fog advisories for areas of the Appalachian Mountains, and we got excessive heat warnings, heat advisories for the Southwest, and then we got red flag warnings across the central and northern Rockies because it's getting very dry. Now, if you look at the excessive rain outlook today, keep having to update this because I've been working on this video for like 2.5 hours. But moderate risk up, that means there's a 40% chance of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles in a given location. So flash flooding will be an issue into the Big Bend of Florida, into the overnight hours especially. Slight risk, 15% risk of that. The latest advisory from the Storm Prediction Center, we have a slight risk, and this is driven off the outer bands of Debby. Tornado risk is driving this. We do have a risk of severe weather in the Northeast today, level 1 out of 5. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather in the Midwest, and then some in the high plains also. Tornado risk, 5% risk down here because of these outer bands. We spoke on this earlier in the video. The wind threats, just a couple 5% risk areas of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour, and then there is a risk of hail in some of these areas too. Forgive me for my folks that are tuning in for the daily forecast and how I'm zooming through this. You just run out of energy when you spend so much energy on that first portion of the video. But the southeast today, obviously you see the eyesore down there with our tropical storm. A lot of activity gets pushed into Florida today. Rain will try to push into the Carolinas too, but I really think that takes into tomorrow for Georgia and the Carolinas. But really the main storyline, of course, is the outer bands affecting Florida today, getting all the way up into Georgia. We're even getting some showers and storms up into the eastern Carolinas. Some storms possible in the mid-Atlantic too. But once you get west and northwest of this area, there's not a whole lot going on. It's a pretty quiet weather day, but of course we're going to have a flooding potential down here, which we discussed heavily in the updates, in the main update on Tropical Storm Debby. But you continue to move forward here and we look at the northeast. We're going to have an opportunity for strong to severe storms in southern New England. We got to watch this line of storms. It sort of drifts into the southern New England region, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, all the way down to the New York City area. Coastal regions of Maine could get some storms, but it's going to be a stormy afternoon for the I-95 corridor, anywhere from New Jersey up into southern New England, into the coastal regions of Maine. And then a secondary area of storms could get going in the interior New England area right here. Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, some storms later this evening are possible. And then that's about it for today. The south central U.S., pretty quiet weather day. We could get some pop-up downpours that kind of drift through southern sections of Texas. South central Texas could bring some much-needed rain down there. But outside of that, that's about it. Not a whole lot else to speak on. North central U.S., a little bit of rain shower activity in the UP of Michigan, rain shower activity in the upper Midwest portion of the country. Then we could get some strong to severe storms later tonight in eastern South Dakota, drifting into southwestern Minnesota. These storms could pack a punch into the overnight hours somewhere in southern Minnesota into northern Iowa. A lot of widespread rain you're waking up to tomorrow in North Dakota, areas of South Dakota. Some heavier rain is also possible that you're waking up to in lower Michigan, too. A little bit of shower activity in western Wisconsin. And then we go out to the western U.S. Much needed rain will continue to have an opportunity to fall in western Montana. This is an area where drought was really starting to get pretty bad, but it looks like we're starting to get some rain up there now. Elsewhere in the central to southern Rockies, just scattered downpour activity, hit or miss shower and storms. Could get more of an isolated area of severe weather that could blast through eastern Montana later tonight into tomorrow morning. So temperatures, I'll stop it here. Very hot in the middle of the country. There's a boundary set up in the high plains, northern sections of the U.S. where just 60s and 70s. You get into Nebraska, it gets hotter than Hades very quick. Nebraska points south, Iowa points south, 90s, low 100s. The eastern U.S. kind of socked into lower pressure. Showers and storms will keep your temperature somewhat cooler, 80s, low 90s. And then out west, it's very hot in the southwest. And just kind of normal type stuff up here in the northern Rockies. Woof. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. I struggled getting that video going, but we got through it. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again this evening.